Ready if you are, sir. All right, everyone, welcome to the joint budget committee this evening. Start off with pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Any adjustment to the agenda? The committee choose, like to choose to elect the chair and vice. You can take this time anyway.
I make a motion, budget committee, appoint Cindy Egan as the chairman. Committee.
I'll second it.
The motion and a second then for the budget committee, all in favor?
Abstain.
So moved. All right.
I make a motion, we appoint Shelley Lowell as the vice chairman of the budget committee.
I'll second that.
The motion and a second, all in favor? All right, congratulations, you two. So tonight, basically, this, gonna be the presentation by Joe. He's giving us his budget, obviously, and, he's gonna be walking us down through it. Hitting on the high points. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. And I'll hand it to you, Joe. Let's get rolling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna do my best to be brief. We're gonna start out with general government selecting 0101, that's on page one. Everybody have that? Okay, the first item here, 0105, this is stipend. In reviewing this with the treasurer, who's pointed out, by the way, for those of you not familiar with what you do designation as treasurer. We discovered that the ordinance committee, needs to be kind of shifted around with the number of meetings, and the CRC, so the adjustments that have been made there, the number of times that these committees meet per year. So there's an adjustment in the line of 27,000 versus 25,000, what was budgeted this year. What this line does not include, and this is of particular interest probably to the Board of Selectmen, is any increase for your salaries or stipends, and that was not by design, it really was just an omission on my point. On my part, I didn't do that with ACO, I didn't do it in one other place too, that I'll point out as we go through. So, if you want to take a moment to discuss that, you can. If you want to take a note, come back to it. So let me know how you want to handle that.
We can discuss that later, that's fine.
Okay. And by the way, when I get to CPI this year, it's the consumer price index. We'll talk about it when we get into admin, since I just mentioned it. It is 3.5% for CPI for the Northeast region. That's from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So fringe benefits, any increases there related to what I just described. I left this primarily the same as this year. I know you see some zeros in there year to date, but you have some new members that may want to go in person to some of these trainings, so we left that. I left that primarily the same.
Kelly?
So have we looked at the different, benefit coverages and maybe looked at different insurance companies? To see if there was something that would cost a little bit less, so we could give the employees a little bit more?
Mr. Chair, is the question about health insurance
Yes,
for employees?
yes.
We haven't done an RFP on that recently. My advice is to stay within the municipal association, the municipal association. They do have different plans that are available. I don't think we're at that stage yet where we're going over that, but my proposal is to stay where we're at. It's a good plan for the employees. I'm also not recommending any different split, so it's staying 80/20. I'm not focusing on that. So the answer to the question is no. We haven't looked at it. It's good coverage. Employees seem happy with it. It applies to non-union folks. So the union employees have immediate care, which is the Teamsters plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Joe, if I could just ask a clarifying question, I'm not sure I followed, what you were saying, Joe, on line 0105. So the increase was because of the increase in the board meeting times for the ordinance committee and the comprehensive plan review committee. And so those committee per person compensations are $25 a meeting, is that right? And then the select board, that hasn't been discussed and increased for the select board. Did I understand that right?
There is no increase, Mr. Chair, in this proposal for the Board of Selectmen. There's also no increase for the other members. What I was attempting to explain was that the number of meetings for some of these committees has been changed. So whether they meet 4 times per year, now they may be proposed to meet 8, so the budget has been changed to reflect that.
Okay.
I'm sure the treasurer could give an item like this at a future meeting if that was something you wanted to see.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understood that right.
And one point I would bring up, since we're on that one, is it's been a while, since the board has granted itself an increase, so I'm, suggesting, think about that again. I did not put it in there for any particular reason. I had not, figured out the 3.5 when we went through this portion of the budget. We were already past it. I would suggest the board think about that and consider giving yourselves an increase. Okay, page 2. Legal services are not the same, 30,000, so we're going to there. For those of you who don't know, the credit query, makes it not 24,000, that sometimes we're special projects. And now with the way our TIP proposal is, we don't have a TIP attorney coming out of the TIP account, we use just this legal knowledge, any miscellaneous TIP items that come up throughout the year. So I'm proposing 30 there, same as what's in the budget for this year. Consultant services the same. There is a drop in the HRA, and Marty's done some calculations on that for us, so that's based on kind of where we're at year to date. So that's one item that's dropped here. If you look at the very bottom, you can see selectmen as the bottom line, year over year, up 14%. And I should have started out with this, Mr. Chair, the format, I'm sure everybody's familiar with it now. Left-hand column is the initial proposal coming from my office. The second column is year to date, that's where we're at with the budget that we're given. And then the third column is what was budgeted for the year before. So you can kind of look at those. And then when you get to the right side, it's the last 2 years. There's a spot in the middle for folks to make notes about what you don't like to change, if any.
Okay, so I'm looking at, line 1502, computer supplies, and year-to-date is 2109, and in actual for 2023 and 2024, they've been at 0. And we keep asking for $600. Is that something are you looking for iPads to come in, this year to be replaced, or?
Mr. Chair, that's exactly what this place, it's a placeholder in case one of the board members misplaces or has an effect, not misplaces. In case there's a defective issue with one of your iPads that needs to be replaced. That's why this is in there. It's a electronic device replacement line, or if we need repairs to or new chargers or something. So far, that hasn't happened.
So what is your estimated turnaround time for them to be replaced? Do you have one? Because they've had them for a while.
You mean updated, like updated to newer models, you mean?
Yeah.
Keith? Oh, you're
Can't hear
muted,
you.
you're muted,
Can't hear
you're muted, I think.
Got it. Thank you. Good evening. So I think these devices are at least 5 years old, if I recall, because when I worked for the town, I ordered them. I personally am not a fan of these things, so just noting that also.
Smell the Samsung. Oh, those are awful.
Yeah.
Those are awful.
Yeah.
You can get some refurbished iPads for not that much money, so less than 300 a piece.
I had a question or something like that, like Keith said he didn't like, I didn't like the whole idea, but the reason that we did it, was for legal reasons.
We can receive all our email correspondence on this thing. And we really don't use it for anything else besides receiving emails. Is there no other way to have, like, when I started here, we had dedicated emails that we could access from any device. Why is that a problem? Because it's so much easier to field emails from you or anybody else in the town office when we have it in our pocket.
So there's nothing that would prohibit a board member from receiving email on a personal device, if it's a town email or even a, personal email. One thing to consider is if for some reason, let me back up. If it's town material, it's public record, even if it's confidential, it needs to be scrubbed or determined whether it's a public record. If it's a public record, whether it's on a public machine or a private machine. If it's on a public machine, you literally, if it's subpoenaed, you can hand the whole thing over. It's handed over. If it's on a private machine, you may be ordered to hand the private machine over while they determine if it's on your machine. Now, they may do that anyway. Whether you have the email on your device or not. So that's something to consider. If there is ever a situation where, and these are rare, really rare, where there's an FOA challenge, and, the court needs to see what's on your device. They may subpoena your personal device anyway, checking for, public email. Now, if you're looking at public email, it's all public record. That's really probably not an issue, but that's kind of the logic behind it. If something is subpoenaed, you just give them the public machine, say, this is it, that's all I got. Don't keep it anywhere else. If you're ever presented with that, and you might have it on a personal device, I would suggest it's already a personal device too, so that's kind of the logic.
So if you're saying, and I know I would explain this when Cindy was on the board, I just want to hear it again because I find these things useless. You're saying even with a dedicated email, it's if we download something off that email onto the device, that's the problem? Because an email's on a server somewhere in Seattle,
Right.
and you can access it from anywhere.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the.
I'm not asking you to be a lawyer. I
Yeah.
just never liked the idea of them. They seemed okay for a minute when we had to Zoom all the time and then just.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons. Now, another reason, that I shifted a little bit to kind of take the conversation in a different direction. I don't know if a laptop might be useful to you, moving forward. It might be a way that we might transition to being paperless. I know that's not everybody's desire, but, maybe on a 2 or 3 year goal, there might be a little bit of a saving there. Certainly, I would want to try to read an agenda on the laptops. I mean, one of those devices that you have.
Definitely discussion down the road, yeah. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Bill?
So on line item 3502, legal fees, is the 30,000, is that part of the contract that you have with, legal?
So 24,000 of that is retainer. It's a $2,000 a month retainer agreement with Freddie Flaherty. And that covers a lot of basic legal items that we use, recurring items. Does not cover TIF items, does not cover litigation. There are some other things it doesn't cover. So sometimes we find ourselves in a spot where we need TIF advice, or we might need, certain other advice that doesn't fall under the retainer. That's why there's a difference between retainer amount and 30,000. Sometimes there are special duties, as I call them, come on.
All right, in line number 3528, consultant services, that looks like it's gone down. It's at the 13,750 from prior years, is that correct? Like, it looks like it's averaging more of around between 17,000 and 18,000.
And what happened in previous years with this, we had, as I recall, we had some anomalies pop up in the negotiating process where we needed to be covered in a couple of different contracts. There was a proposed contract from a prospective new unit that required coverage. That's no longer the case.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're doing.
Okay, on page 3, 0101, this is the first place where I will touch upon non-union salaries. Mine is first, and that is an increase over last year of 3.5%. That's the CPI-U that I mentioned earlier. And that is a contract item. I am entitled to cost of living adjustments that other non-union folks get, so I'm proposing that for several other non-union folks. You'll see that there are folks in here that are getting adjustments that are not COLA. I'm not one of them. Assistant town manager is one of those. So the rationale that I've used for this and the other positions are, or is included in your packet, it's the salary survey that MMA did for the board. I took that, spread it out, took Rangeley current, MMA average, got the difference. And then met with each individual employee, kind of talked about where we were in the scheme of things. And then I made a conclusion about what to recommend to the board. So each one of these is based on that methodology. So 85 is slightly less than the average that's in that salary survey. That has to do with the years of service and the size of the community in the survey. And it also has to do with the experience and growth of the current person in the position. So that's my recommendation or proposal to the board for the salaries. And again, that methodology is going to recur throughout the budget. And I'll just touch on it in each one. I won't give you a lot of detail, but it's the same methodology. Merit increases, this only exists in this budget. And this is for me to certainly not give out to myself, but to give out to non-union employees who have gone above and beyond through the year. It's currently at 1,500. I'm proposing 5,000 in the upcoming year. Retention bonus, this is a program that we instituted last year. There's one person in this group that qualifies, and I believe it's me. I'm putting that in there. You're not required to do that. I'm putting it in just for consideration. I'd like to keep that program going. I think a lot of folks passed their milestone in the last year. So you won't see it in a lot of places in the budget, but I don't want that flame to go out. That's mainly why I put this in here for conversation's sake. And then of course, all the fringe benefits are based on calculations from those.
So I just have a question in regards to the salary, for the town manager. Does that include, I know that was in your contract, which I think you're still under, that, there was an increase in one of your retirements? So a portion was paid for the retirement,
That shows up in the fringe benefits, under 0503.
4502?
0503.
503.
Yep.
Underneath the 457 match? So that's not, I thought that was main purse that your contract was for.
Well, I'm entitled to main purse because I'm a full-time employee, so I do get main purse. I also get a.
Right, but there was extra that was being paid out to you for that.
And that's what's in line 0503. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, the topic being discussed is a non-electric contribution to my 457 plan that was in at least my last contract, if not the one before it. There was a small bump in the last one. I believe it's $500 a month. That's all right, Mike? Yeah. So everybody, and that, I can make that contract available if anybody would like to see it. Just let me know. A lot of travel training, I left the same. I haven't, staffing changes and so forth, I haven't had a chance to get out of the office much, but I hope to, and I hope that Tracy can, so I left those in notes. Where they're at. One thing before we go much further, I should point out, I had to do it for this budget last year. This budget last year had an additional position in it. The office assistant was housed in this budget. That is a different paradigm this year. The office assistant has been reclassified, it is now deputy clerk, regular tax collector, and will, in this proposed budget, show up in the town clerk division. So the treasurer, on her wise recommendation, I left those silos built, and we'll just populate those positions in the existing silos. So I just wanted to point that out. That is a dynamic that's different in the proposed budget than what you see in this year's budget.
Is this the time to ask to see a revision of something or something?
You can ask something, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Similar to last year, we had a little bit of a discussion around the income protection plan, of course, non-union salary employees is at 40%. So in layman's terms, if somebody went out ill for a period of time, they're going to only receive 40% of their income. But I suggested that we match what the union benefit was, which was 70%, and people can feed their families and live if they're out for a short disability on 70% of their pay. The theory being that there's a drop in some of their day-to-day living expenses, business expenses. So the next round through, I'd love to see what the cost increase as it is across the salary population. I want to say it was pretty minimal number, like $1,500 next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then one other comment, but go here, a suggestion. Family Medical Leave Act for 2025 is 1% payroll for most employers. And that's where it was seated, get some administration built up, a little bit of reserve. It's a 12-week paid leave run by the state. And I just don't think 1% is going to be the right number in 2026. I'd recommend, just from my background, 2%. I don't know if the state's, I don't think the state's probably giving you that guidance, and they're struggling just to get this thing off. So it will cost a lot more than 1%.
I have not seen that guidance yet, Mr. Chair, but we can follow up on that. It's been quite a production, just trying to get up to speed.
I'm just glad I'm retired.
But that is a new line in 0514. Thank you, Jim, for pointing that out. That is a new line this year to reflect that new law. So we have travel training, I touched on that.
Kelly, you get something?
Yeah. I just have a question on 0512. Last year, in 2024, it was 1340, and now it's up to 10.5.
So if you look at year to date, you're already in the negative on that line. I don't know how it was calculated last year, but I went off of the fiscal 26 numbers that they gave us that they're going to charge you.
Okay.
So typically, we would see the full amount that's been expended as opposed to just showing what the overage is. Because it looks, I don't recall actuals being presented like that in prior years. That's just a comment, just so we're dealing with real numbers.
Well, if it's in the minus, it would be the 3713 plus the 5357 for what you spent so far year to date, right? So what did you see in the?
It's just been the true number. There hasn't been any math involved. Like you can see what the budget was and what was spent.
Joe?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, 1003, this has the Service Center Coalition dues in it. The coalition did vote to increase those, that hadn't been done some period of time. I think it went up 15%. And that is the group that I'm part of, the town is part of, but I'm part of the executive committee that we focus on lobbying efforts. We're just getting ramped up on that actually. So I think it's money well spent. There is a small increase there. That's where the fits in the budget. That's why that item is up. nothing really to report in the supplies. And then at the end of the day, bottom line, it's about $32,000 increase year to year. Next item on page 5 is assessing. We use a contract with assessing. We just reviewed the contract, so if you look at the initial column at 3504, that's this year's upcoming year's amount. Which is slightly above where we're currently at. There's a decrease in the software line. That's just based on what's expected to happen there. Those are the changes in that. Now, before I lose the assessing train of thought, we do have a contract in place for a revale, that's due about a year and a half from now. The strategy of previous boards was to use the general reserve to pay for that. It's about $100,000 contract, as I recall. I'll give you more details on that in future meetings, but just so that's on everybody's horizon, and that's something that's in place, contract signed. And that was the strategy for paying for them. It doesn't reflect this, it doesn't affect this budget at all. I just think meant the low for us going through. Okay, page 6. This is the finance part. Again, this is where treasurer, next level, clerk, is housed. She's the only person in this file, I'll call it, currently. There's 3.5 COLA recommended. Okay, thank you. Slight bump in overtime wages, that's from gap ups, late meetings and so forth. Stipends, that is for budget committee. There's an increase there, and that's for number of meetings, right? Not an increase. Number of members serving. Yeah. These do not reflect increases for folks, the stipends, which is something else the board may want to consider. I know that Marty's gone down on some travel and training, so the 457 match will go down just because of the personnel changes. There's some savings there. Mileage reimbursement should go down to 1001. That's down based on predictions of what she's going to do for training going forward. Same with 1002, 1004. The next page, you'll see the travel training is down $5,000. Now the computer supplies. The supplies in general is down $100. Utilities, Marty's got through really taking a look at all of these very closely. One thing I do want to point out is 3528. This is our CPA consultant. Now, this is not something that existed prior to this current year. But I've been satisfied, we've been satisfied with how it's been working out so far. Mark is doing, he's remote, he doesn't work in the building unless we request him to, but he will help us with consulting issues for journal entries or specific questions that we have for reviewing issues. He's right now double checking some reserve account information for us, so that we're right on for your meeting where we discuss that. I am proposing that we keep him on board through the next year, so that is 20 hours a month, $150 an hour, comes up to 36,000. That's a contract arrangement, and it's we're not committed to that. In the agreement with them, it's by the hour. So if we use 10 hours, that's what we get billed for. If we use 30, that's what we're going to get billed for. So this is a budget estimation, but that's what it's based on. 20 hours a month, $150 an hour. And to me, that's pretty cheap insurance to have a CPA helping us out as needed.
Does he also do the bank? Does he also do the bank reconciliations?
He can.
I do.
He's not currently doing it, but he can do that. He can spot check them if needed.
Yeah.
He's not currently.
Yeah, I mean, it's great.
Also, to get me caught up to speed on, so and things that I have to do.
Oh, that's.
But Mr. Chair, it's a good point, that Cindy brings up, because one of the focuses that, staff, and they've been great about this, they're helping me think about business continuity, right? So if Marty takes a long vacation, or something happens, or if she's not here for 2 or 3 weeks, or someone else goes out, I can reach out and say, Mark, can you help with this? You know, even if it's just for the month, even if it's just, something that he normally wouldn't do, I know he can handle that, right? So he can do that for us. It's good to have that a phone call away. Obviously, somebody else internally could do it if they were available, but I don't think it's a bad thing. And Marty agrees with me, I think, on this, to have somebody outside that can look in at that stuff. He is not a rocker, I want to be clear about that. He's not one that he works for us. But he can definitely help with bank recs if we need, or other things. It's a good business continuity model. I want to talk about that some in the plan, also different function, but same theory. Got a good staff that's thinking about business and keeping the business rolling. Lean costs, those look like they're the same. Oh, I guess we're towards the end of that. So there's an increase here. But most of that is the consultant that I just described. Mr. Chair, I don't know if you noticed or not, but we have in the room now from those three. Just so everybody knows that she's here.
Well, it's so small, I can't see it.
All right, next we're at planning. This is one where the salary was below the average, and as far as I'm concerned, the average was below where it would need to be to make sure this position was viable. The methodology I used here, just so everybody understands how I came to this number, because I feel like code enforcement is a very important position in the town, and we have challenges recruiting and retaining. It was kind of the same concept that I heard from the board when we were talking about rebuilding PD. So I used the same percentage increase in code enforcement that we used to recruit our police chief. So it's a 16% increase above the average. That's how I came to 73,000. I've discussed that with our CEO. We're on the same page there. So that's the increase. That's where it came from. I think that's a relevant, not irrelevant, a relevant number for retaining, and then down the road making sure that the department is in a place where it needs to be. I've done a lot of talking. Brett, do you want me to keep going with this?
You're doing just fine.
All right, good. I'm trying. Part-time wages, so there is an increase in the printout, it's not in the printed portion of your budgets, but there's a memo in there. Brack and I had talked about prior to, and we didn't get it to Marty in time, that's on, not me, nobody else, but the concept was certainly aligned before this was printed. With the added responsibilities of mooring, which is gonna take a lot of extra work in the spring and going forward. And with the comp plan hopefully getting completed soon, and with the huge number of permits, you'll see if you look at the revenue in this, we're at revenue in this year that where we were the last 2 years at the end of the year. So we've been very busy with building permits. It's a busy office. And again, the CEO wants to take a 2-week vacation, we want to make sure we've got coverage. So we do have a part-time CEO now, who's handling a lot of stuff to help out. The proposal here is to have a second CEO. That's what the email that Brett shared there, was the rationale behind it. So the numbers are not in the sheet, in the budget, but they will be updated. Overtime wages are up. Kind of the same concept there.
Your time wages are up because of the massive volume of permits. Things that are going to.
Of course, FICA, as I said earlier, that's all dependent on what's going on above. Dropped mileage reimbursement, and that's mainly because you used the truck more than you used to in the last budget. training costs have come down. Now, we're talking about having a new employee come in, potentially, that doesn't mean we're not gonna train them, it just means you're pretty much up to speed on most of it, right?
Yeah, the big change is we just got word that MUBEC signed into law on January 7th, finally, 2021 code, which puts it going live on April 7th. So we've got contractors, we've got a lot of people talked with, trained, to bring them up to speed. So some of this training is gonna go on into next year, into next budget season. So while the training budget is down for next year, some of that reflects the additional training we're gonna have to do with the contractors. There's a lot, 2021 code is, we're skipping 2018 code. So going from 2015 to 2021, it's a big jump for the contractors.
Another reason
A lot
why,
of work.
we need some help, some extra help, to get your hands on deck. So, you know, some decrease there in training costs. Decrease, you know, just some of the total training is down, to 2,900. Increase in office supplies. It's got to do with the posts. Safety supplies. One of the things you see in the year-to-date, you know, because there's
I
a.
spent some of that, I just don't know where.
Okay, well, we'll work on that.
You got treatment.
What type of safety supplies? You got safety, you got boots, I
We have
have
boots,
reflective jackets.
reflective jackets, gloves, the hard hat, things like that.
E911, these are the green signs that folks get. The first one's on the town will pay for it, the number sign. Second one, you know, if they need it replaced, they have to pay for that. But it's an increase from the number of new builds, right, and you're gonna have some more to be able to supply your folks. You know, so that's up. There's a new phone request in here, that's why that's noted. Vehicles is about the same. I'm glad to see this line in here though. So it didn't, CEO didn't have a vehicle for a while, and now you do. You gotta make sure it's maintained. Tires and so forth. Software, this is why we're double checking on that this was for the initial mooring module for iWork, and it's $500. Yep. Avcog dues have gone up, I know we're going to do that. They haven't done that in quick release for a while, so those dues are up, $500
On the software, 500. Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking at 5,000.
We already have the base software, this is quite a module, things that base software.
We're gonna verify that for you. Yeah, we're gonna verify it. On the next page, consultant services, so this is where we pay for Donna, who's helping us with our comp plan overall. I think we're pretty much on track for June, but in the case that we don't make it, I think it's a good safety net to have the 20,000 in there. In the event that we do make it and it passes at June town meeting, I think it's a good idea to have this in there to help with implementation. Something I've heard from the committee, the meetings I've attended, is that, you know, they want to make sure that all the work they're putting into this gets out the door and is implemented, and I know the board wants to do that too. So I think, you know, there'll be some staff participation by Breck and his folks, but he may need some help from an expert in the consulting field. Truth be told, I probably won't make any bones about this. If I had an office for a planner, I'd be asking for a planner in this budget. But I don't have it, so I'm doing what I can with what I've got, and I think this is the way to do it. Advertising's the same, so year to year, about $27,000 increase. Not including the proposal for second CEO, which is $30,000 range. You'll have those numbers for next meeting. Okay, page 11. General government buildings down on this. Much of this stays the same. Building supplies for paper and janitorial materials, on request of Parks Director who takes care of this stuff, he's asked that we bring it up. And it makes sense because now that we're fully staffed, we're using a lot more perfect than we were. And I think whatever surplus we might have hanging around is gone, so we're trying to account for that. So that's why that's up, single cleaning supplies, those two lines are up for the same reason. 1511, I've included here 2 smart TVs. One to replace this and then one to go somewhere else in the room, possibly behind the board, possibly over here for the audience to see. So they don't connect to the computer. It kind of phase out this side here, and then also, I think there are 2 chairs in there that need to be replaced, so that's where the increase comes from in the monitor equipment line.
Yep.
What about a better audio system?
So we have, we made some upgrades there. Next time Exponet is up, they're going to, I've asked them to bring a couple of table mics for folks like me that are sitting a ways away from the microphone right now, with a mask and maybe don't project as well as other folks. The board had authorized, I think, up to 10,000 for that, and I've worked with Exponet to get the additional material. Their motion was to put these items in. So one of these is a speaker, one is a microphone, that's the microphone, that's the speaker. They do a lot better at picking folks up. I think it's a huge improvement, but the feedback I've got is what I just said, that folks like me may not always project, doesn't always come through on the computers as well as folks would like. So Exponet's gonna fix that in this year's budget. I'm already authorized to do that. They just
Speaking for
have-
someone that's hearing impaired, yeah, it's not good.
yeah.
How was it for you, Keith? You hearing everything all right? No?
No,
Oh,
it's difficult to catch quite a bit of it.
I'm a ways away from the microphone. Yeah, I've got a mask on.
Well, I think it's, in a general statement, yeah, I think it's more of there's a delay, but there's also a glitch. I mean, I'm running 5G service right now, so, but it doesn't pick up every word in itself.
Okay.
Equipment rental, one of the other things that I want to do in this room is put a water cooler in here. That's the additional 150. So that's the increase in that. Telephone, again, Marty's gone through, kind of audited these phone lines for us, so these reflect where they should be. Electricity is an area where we've gone down. Part of that is through our power purchase credits. Part of it is due to the fact that this building, does not have its own meter. We're estimating based on what's coming through the fire department. But again, I think this is a reasonable estimation that's come down in this department. Heating fuel, again, that's an estimation that Marty's put together for us, which seems to be right on. So, water's up $200, sewer's up $45. On the next page, there is an increase in the 2501. This is for RFID. Mr. Chair, has a question.
Oh, sorry, Shel.
Okay, with the water, is that a typo? It looks like it's on average is around 1,100 rather than 1,000, because if you look at that year to date for 2025, I mean, it's been close to 1,100 for the past 2 years for actual. And you're right about the halfway mark right now. So I didn't know if that was a typo or.
We can, we'll verify that. Thank you. One minute, I appreciate that. Page 12. RFID locks. So these are radio frequency locks. We talked about this in the board a while ago. We applied for a grant, been successful. It's $4,700, I think, out the door for the whole kit. We're gonna get $300 back from MMA. That 3,000 rather, that will show up in our revenue when we get to the end of the budget. But we're budgeting for the entire amount here, for the doors in this building. But basically what that means is, when these are in place, you'll have to have the card to swipe in and swipe out. That's for safety of employees and safety of the public, also safety of people using the building. So that's why that's up.
So, in regards to that, it looks like right now budgeted for 2025 is around 9,200. And, it's right around 1,900 year to date. Is there any room to push that in to reduce that amount, so it's not such a to use funds from, if you start the project in 2025 budget and then finish it in 2026, is there any way to use 2025 income?
Yeah, there's a $4,200, very good question, there's a $4,200 item in the budget for the HVAC clean out in that part of the building. It has a hot air, system. So that hasn't been spent yet. I put in a request for an updated, proposal, a couple weeks ago. So waiting to hear back on that. That's the logic behind that one. Website's up slightly just for the rounding. Xerox lease, we had a lease and then we had a maintenance agreement. This is a new lease, we just got the machine came in. Last summer, the old one was, that we had beyond the years that we were supposed to. So we got our life out of it. We've got the new Xerox, in the house, so that's the lease item there. And then the maintenance is for all the, parts that need to be serviced on it, so that shows up below. And one thing I need to point out at 3527, there's a zero there. That doesn't mean we're not going to do cleaning. It means that we released an RFP. I think we got one response back today. I know we got one response back today for this. I want to analyze that and determine where to go next with this. It's up from this year. So it won't be any lower than what it is in this line. Unless we go back to bid or I can negotiate something. So I need time to process that. I just saw it this afternoon. I hope that have a nice clean number to plug in there as a proposal. In any case, the board of selectmen would have to see that on there again, and prove that before it was plugged into the book. Yeah. Safety building now. First change in electricity, again, our purchase agreement, which is just credits, all credits. Heating fuel is down, that's based on the amount that Mike's plugged in for the average. What price per gallon and the average number used for next year. Water's up slightly, sewer's up slightly. Slight increase in direct TV. It's based on actual billing. Repair and maintenance, so this is a similar scenario to the office building. Is going to happen in public safety building. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Sean.
That's right. For line 20-02 electricity.
Yes.
Should that be a higher amount? Because it looks like it's been over other than actual for 2024.
So prior to this, it was not being split correctly. The PSB was catching more of the fees than the town office. As if getting their meter not.
So we don't have to worry about
So that's
raising that. Thank you. Sorry.
In the public safety building, fire station, they're going to, they want to put in RFID locks there, same as these. At this point, there's no matching grant, but that's one of the increased items. The awnings over the entry doors, the personnel doors need to be replaced. Glad to see that those are in the budget this year. And so those are at 2501. No 2504 items this year. Casting water, everything the same. And it looks like they're good on the changes, so year to year, about $5,000 increase. Anything you'd like to add to that, Chief Bacon?
No, can't do it pretty well.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Position of highway supervisor. COLA been applied here. Part-time wages are here. As you can see, I did not direct any increase in COLA, although in hindsight, probably makes sense to do that. 3.5% for those folks.
No,
So quick question, 3.5% COLA, is that with the merit? Because COLA, when I Googled it, it's 2.5 this year. 1.5.
That's 3.5. I can share that with the committee after the fact. But
Ethan?
didn't you say you based on consumer price index, that and COLA, two different things, right?
yeah, CPI U Northeast Region 21-24. It's up 3.5%.
So is that historically what the town's past practice has been, Joe?
That's what I typically propose, yeah. Doesn't always
Call it.
doesn't always make it through. That is what I recommend basing. Here, line 514, you'll see that in all the range categories. Mileage reimbursement has been dropped, although this is a new employee, I think there's enough here. Get this person trained offsite if need be. A lot of things are virtual now. We're gonna see a decrease in 1002. Pretty good decrease in 1004 and meals and lodging, again, that is attached typically to the trainings that folks are going, they're gonna stay overnight.
I just want to touch base on Jim's previous comment. It's regarding, the percentage. So, where this is so new, so is the money captured, the 1% captured by the town of Rangeley, does that stay in the town? I was under the impression it went to a pot in the state.
It does.
Okay, yeah, so
We have
why would
this-
we increase our, okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, my comment was, I think the state is going to increase it in 2026. There's no way you can
Okay.
run a benefit program like that on 1%.
Right,
There's even been some articles that were suggesting.
okay.
And
I'm following you now, Jim. All right, very helpful. Thank you. All right, okay, never mind. Yep, we're good. Thanks.
Okay, page 16. Year supplies is down, products. The supplies in general is down slightly because of that. That's really the only change I see there. Town clerk is up year over year, up 27,000.
No,
On 1503, election supplies, should that be 0? Didn't we have?
No, that's for the ballots, that's printing the ballots.
Did everything's out, that's it, okay. Thank you.
And the program.
That's for town meeting, correct?
Right.
Okay. Next item is property casualty, that's on page 17. It's another 10% increase. Well, I believe we programmed in at 10%. It was 10%. So here, typically, that's what we push in there.
Kelly?
So on the insurance part, where the cruisers are going to homes, is there an additional coverage that has to be for the town to cover those vehicles when they're technically not on duty? I just know when I had to do extra mileage that I was doing on my personal insurance, they increased mine because I was traveling to Farmington every day. I'm throwing it out there just for things.
I'll follow up on that, Mr. Chair.
And what's the liability? So if something happens and they get injured in the police car, not in the jurisdiction. Maybe check on that too for like medical, for insurance. I'm just curious because
So the police SOP, is very clear, as is the town's vehicle policy that, there's to be no personal use of these. So if they're conducting, business or commuting to their home, they're not using it for personal use. So they become,
even if they're not, sorry, even if they're not in the town of Greenfield.
yeah. So that takes us through first portion of number 5 here. Next will be public safety, which begins on page 19.
So on the tip, there was no, costs that are associated with the tip. And have we looked at all the projects that the town has going and some of the, expenses and projects that we have coming up for this coming year to be used for tip funds? And would that cost to research that?
So the way, now that we have a TIF project account, and TIF will be on an upcoming agenda, but to quickly answer your question, now that we have a TIF project account, we would want to make sure that the warrant article for the upcoming year would cover any expenses that the town wanted to come out of the project account for the upcoming year. If we have a legal question or something that comes up, it's not designated on that warrant article, it would come out of 35, whatever the number is in the selectmen.
Okay.
Number that we talked about earlier. It's the short answer for it. The second part of this is here, yes, we are working on, projects in the TIF. I've talked with Jamie right here, so that get into more detail when we get to that item, at the next meeting or the meeting after. All right, we're ready for, oh, I gotta let, what committee member in, hello? Kitty Johnson, Mr. Chair, what you guys doing? All right, item on page 19, fire rescue, chief salary, 3.5% COLA. We discussed the methodology there already. Wages are here. We recently had, one thing that haven't discussed much, to date is the fact that we have a collective bargaining agreement in place that was ratified right at the last bell, I think, before July 1. It took effect right before the year began. Which is great for the employees. It was not, the increases were not reflected in the budget. So you'll see in this year, the proposed year, those increases that are in the collective bargaining agreement, which is on our website, if anybody wants to see it, are included in 0102. So we have 2 full-time folks in the fire department, and their wages will be, or are reflected in 2026. There's kind of a difference there between 25 and 26 because, the bargaining agreement brought those wages and working, benefits up. So that's, most of the explanation of the change there. 38,000 is part-time wages. This is for folks that get called in. Overtime wages is for the union folks. We're slightly over this year, but I know the chief was, working through new scheduling. I'm sure we can get work out of that. For the, these are folks that, on-call firefighters have not been in this category. These are folks that chief can bring in, with typically with some advanced notice to work with his full-time folks. Like for a busy event, something like that. So that's right on track, same amount as last year. No retention bonus, there's nobody that qualifies, so that's at 0. And of course, the fringe benefits are all in there too. What we just talked about there, training is the same, all at 101. 102 is the same. Everything's the same if we get to Hearing tests, is there any questions on that? Up until hearing test, which is 1524, I'll take those in. One of the things I asked for in this budget was to make sure that hearing tests were itemized for each department. In the last couple of years, it's not a big deal, but some departments had it broken out, some folks didn't, and they didn't catch it. This year we actually mine caught it, so we've got it so it's more standardized. It's very clear there for everybody to see. We used to be able to get it for free from a company in Farmington. That program, as far as I know, doesn't even assume much for that. That's why you see a difference there. So hearing tests have been happening and would have been taken out of 1509, safety. They would have been coded to a place that made sense to the supervisor in the absence of this very clear 1524, that if it wasn't put in the budget and picked up by me, that it wouldn't have been on there. That's report that coded there. So that's the background there.
Hey, Jimmy.
Oh, sorry, Keith, yep.
Hey, can we just want to back up real quick? Just a question. Maybe you can educate me, but 1002 in training cost. That's at $7,000 and it has been for the last three sessions and it's never been be close to half. So is there trainings that happen on a regular, like a different schedule that we would anticipate, or is that just something we keep at $7,000?
So, Mr. Chair, I can answer this. So, training in general, sometimes we try to get our officers or our instructors out to FDIC, which is, you're dealing with flights and such. This year, starting the end of January and then pushing through February for 3 months, we're starting a firefighter 1 and 2. That will be, that will cost a bit of money. So every firefighter that's going through the class, which we have 6 right now, will receive books, online access. They'll go through 3 months of training, and then they'll also go to testing. And that will take a big chunk of that this year. Also, we save a little bit there if we have a candidate that would like to go to the EMT class. I guess I should direct my voice towards the microphone. EMT class or first responder class, and then the training equipment that we may need.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, just to follow up, Chief Bacon, that's very helpful information. So that type of training hasn't happened in a few years. Just looking back, as Ethan pointed out, the actual expenditures are, a fraction. So is it been a while?
Madam Chair, so last year, if we run into overages in other lines, we have to take that money from somewhere. So if we're running over in equipment, something has to suffer. So sometimes training suffers. We didn't fly out the FDIC that last year. We didn't have a firefighter 1 and 2 program. And when we bring in firefighter 1 and 2, it's based on need. So we have new firefighters coming in, as well as a few firefighters that have been on the department for a while that are fitting that perfect timing for firefighter 1 and 2. So we'll get it taken care of this year. But we still do train every Tuesday. They're out there playing with fire right now, training. So every Tuesday we still do training. Okay.
It's very helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So line item for supplies 1502, is the 750 enough? Because it looks like the average for actual is higher than that for like 2023 and 2024.
So are we in 1502 computers or?
That is the 1501 line item for office supplies, standard office supplies.
Okay. I'll have to look into that a little bit. I don't have the prior years.
Well, Mr. Chair, we're halfway through the year. And we're at 300, so I think that's adequate, 1501. I do understand it's gone over the previous year. I think some of that, as I recall, Chief, was when you did some awards materials and training materials.
Safety program. So when we started the safety committee program, those funds were coming out of the fire department budget.
I just remember seeing you in Canada with envelopes. I noticed this the photocopy.
So the 750 is okay to remove that, or should it be?
I'm okay with the 750.
I am too, yeah.
But what if I could follow up with one thing to the chief's point, as you were explaining, that sometimes throughout the year, we have to look at, the bottom line. In the last couple of years, and I know it happens in other departments too, truck repairs get expensive, and I was looking back at some of those expenses in the fire department. There was a year where it was more than budgeted. So sometimes you can't spend everything in one line, training, for instance, that they had wanted to. So that does happen in various.
Being 25, we just went over, we went over hearing.
All right. Let's see, any other changes? I do want to point out 2503, we're in pretty good shape this particular year with vehicle maintenance.
Next big change is 25-24 CBA.
And there's been an increase in the annual testing.
Annual testing, and we have 21 cylinders, which will be going out towards their 5-year hydro testing this year, which adds to that increase. That's an increase every 5 years.
Software is up. We've got a new program, chief has a new program.
Yeah, can I just touch on that,
Please.
Joe? So the county, and Rich can really talk about this one, because Rich is the one that headed up the program for the county, basically. The county is going to a software program called Central Square. And along with that, the fire department, let's see, what do we do? Inventory management, incident management, documentation, all of that has changed over to First Due. And I don't believe we have a bill going out this year, and that's because the county commissioners has paid for the first year. But along with that, some of the billing is kind of floating out there. We don't know quite how much it's going to cost. It could come back that it costs $4,500 for the year, and then we'll change the budget the next fiscal year, but we just don't know. We know it's gonna be under 6,000. We just don't know where it's gonna hit because it's a large package right now. And it's gonna be going live this year sometime.
July.
July. That's that.
Mark?
So when does this software take place?
I think it's up to
Become
the.
available for you to use?
We're using it right now. We're already documenting our calls, we're documenting our equipment, our training. That's all in place. We started it last year. But because everything is up in the air and the initial package that the county paid for, we basically got a free year of license fees, if you will.
Because I thought I saw on one of your monthly reports to the selectmen that you were about to start using new software, which would allow you to put different or more information into the monthly reports to the selectmen.
So we've been in about a year of transition and a year of educating. So the new software from First Due is not as user-friendly as the software we have been using. The software we have been using that was called emergency reporting, they increased their prices to $10,000. And I'm not prepared to bring across a proposal to pay $10,000 for documenting 500 calls, 52 trainings a year. It's not cost effective. So that's why we moved over to First Due, and it is a little bit harder to use. I'm getting it up there. I can barely use Facebook. So we're trying to educate ourselves in using this program to benefit us.
Does it have the capability to let you customize You reporting?
That's what we're having problems. There's so many customizations that if you get something wrong, and then it just spits out gibberish. And we're trying to process through that. So we are getting more and more reports out. I think the select board saw the first report that was a little bit more cleaner this last go around, and we'll build off of that.
Okay, thank you.
So all in all, Mr. Chair, contract services, the fire department is up 8,000 year to year. You're up about 20,000 in his budget. Again, a good healthy share of that is compensation. That's what you'll see as a theme in a lot of these departments is, 50% of the increase in each department approximately is compensation, whether it's by CBA or on market adjustments.
John?
Okay, so I know we bring this up every time. Is there some kind of better equation to bill out for the fire department services?
That's, Mr. Chair, as the board's aware, is something that the quarterly meeting talked about the other night. In that meeting, I didn't hear any suggestions about different factors. There was a question about the weight of the current factors. That's what I took away, which I will research for the board and report back.
Well, it was a suggestion too, that we sit down with the plantations and do a brainstorming on that formula to see if things could be looked at differently or whatnot. So it's something that we're looking at.
Because the other thing too, that the taxpayers for Rangeley pay the taxes, so this budget is out of our pockets. And they don't get billed, the plantations don't get officially billed for this year until next year. So we're using our money. So if we're using our money, and I mean, and there's an increase in the budget, shouldn't we get some interest that we aren't gaining on the return of our investments? Because we get last year's bill. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, no bank's gonna give you no interest for a year borrowing money, but that difference in between. So if the bill from last year and this year, there's a difference in that, then that's potentially money that we are missing out on.
Yep, it's not something we can discuss.
And it's something that the plantation, it's my understanding, it's something that the plantations asked because they didn't want to just pay part of the budget process.
Well, when we set it up initially, it was an actual cost that we billed them, so there wasn't a plus or a minus, and we needed to get back or ask for more or whatever it was.
Right.
Mark?
So, the selectmen planning to have a agenda item on, one of their meetings about this formula prior to meeting with the plantations to kick the ball around.
At some point, I envision that, we're just kind of tied up with the budget right now, but we'll be dealing with that. I imagine we would discuss it ourselves before we all sat down.
Yeah, after that last meeting, I know this is, I had a couple thoughts there that maybe one size isn't the best for all, that maybe like the formula for use of the transfer station. Maybe that existing formula is good, but like for the fire, the valuation, the number of dwelling and the number of people. I'm not so sure how important the number of people are in the fire department service part of it, but maybe the number of acres they cover or the farthest point that they need to travel to each of those things might be more applicable than the number of people. So, I was just thinking it might be worth discussing.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you say like acres?
Acres or square miles or something like that.
This is gonna cost
That
more
makes
for
sense.
gas. It'll cost more for gas to drive.
Yeah, and we have one of the largest coverage areas.
Mark actually just gave me an idea that I might be able to tweak a little bit. So.
Good. Excellent. All right. Well, you go.
I believe that concludes the review of the fire department.
And Joe, with your permission and the chair permission, we're gonna go attend training.
Yeah. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Share is. I think it was animal control, was police department. So salary, 3.5% COLA for the chief. Wages are set by contract. This is one, where the bargaining agreement wasn't complete in time for this budget. But we do have, a ratified collective bargaining agreement. We have currently, a chief and 3 full-time officers. They are performing, 24-hour coverage. And the board is working on, that for this year and proposing that again for next year. So the wages are there, they reflect that. Part-time wages, are there for reserve officers as needed. That hasn't changed. The wages have changed, obviously, in 0102, that's based on CBA, based on, round the clock coverage coming up. Chief, if you want to interject with any quote, go ahead, but I'll just go ahead through this and if you have any questions, you can come up. Overtime wages is up. That looks like a pretty good bump. And again, this is based on a 24-hour coverage model. There may be some new dynamics introduced there by way of MOU. But generally speaking, it's a 24-hour coverage model with the 3 officers. So if you do a little bit of rough math there, look at any specifics, you split that out a few ways. It looks like a lot in a lump sum, but if you split it out over the course of years, it's a livable wage for somebody in a profession that hard to recruit and retain. Retention bonus 0111. This is an MOU that the town made with the union. The board discussed this a number of years ago, but it was only recently that we were able to enact it. So it's 24 hours, it's 20, I think it was 2,500 in the door, 2,500 each year up until either 3 or 4 years. So anyways, 2,500 due this year to each of the 3 union folks.
Kelly?
So on the overtime wages, is that schedule forcing overtime in each, schedule that you have?
So currently, yes, but for the upcoming, and what we're proposing, no. Some of this is every 3 weeks, there'll be built-in overtime. So I think it's a 36-hour, 2 weeks, 54, third week, 3-week rotation. Some of the overtime is, court time, if they get called into court, covering vacations, holiday pay.
It's covering
Set time,
so.
it's kind of building it in, it's not guaranteed that that's gonna be paid out, it's just covering for the worst case scenario if someone's out sick and they have to pay overtime to cover it. Because that's what.
That's like someone's salary. Just saying.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure that the coverage that we're not building with our 24/7 coverage, which is not really common to have that much coverage for, I don't know if it's because of the on-call, where there's no one in town anymore, but it's just, seems like a lot of money, so just saying.
So, as usual, the fringe benefits, relate to what's above. Health insurance for folks is up, considerably over previous years. As is main purse. Again, that's related to having a fully staffed and well-trained department. Mileage reimbursements is down. Folks are going to cruisers for folks to use. Training costs is up a little bit. Again, we have folks that are all academy graduates. Some of them have, I don't have more than 10 years experience. But training never ends in one person. So that's gone up to make sure that people are getting what they need for training.
Joe?
Is a lot of that training, cost, is that on the online classes?
So that's not a lot of it, that's a small portion of it. This would be actually paying for sending someone to the academy for training, or an outside, entity for supervisor training or things like that.
So that's not like for firearms training and,
That would be part of it.
okay, alright. Alright.
I'm glad to see the training lineup. You know, I know it's been discussed years in the past, you know, are you raising enough for training? Is there enough money there for training? You know, it's so important, so. So this is good. What you need to do.
Dues are up for 10:03. Chief belongs to the main Chiefs of Police Association and some other organizations. And he needs to stay current for statute books. So that is up slightly. Meals and lodging stayed the same. Office supplies, there is a little bit of a hiccup in this year's budget, but I envision that that's gonna plateau, so we'll be okay at 200. Operating supplies are up a little bit. Yeah, that has to do with, the number of officers being increased. Minor equipment's the same. We did have, if you look at the year to date, I know we don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on that, but we were outfitting new folks in this budget year, so that's why that's kind of anomalous. That's at $8,600 in 1511. But I think we're okay at 3,500. Here in test again, you're seeing this itemized through here. Gas is up slightly, about 4,000. That's estimated. But if you look at year to date, I know there was some concerns early on when we were talking to public about this, but, we're roughly 30% of our budget for the year, so. I think 14 is pretty safe there. And I'm going to page 25 now. Vehicle maintenance, so 2503. The year to date is up in this. We had one cruiser that was kind of a dormant cruiser for a while. Once that got back on the road, it showed its true colors and had some things that needed to be fixed up. That one bill was $5 or $6 grand, so that's why this is kind of over. I think bumping up to 6,500 is reasonable for the next year.
Mark?
Was there money in there to have the Rangeley stuff putting on the door, the
Side of the.
logos and stuff like that, so that, people know we have a police presence in town, like that vehicle outside the door, I don't think that has it, and I don't think yours does.
Mine doesn't know.
I think 2 of them do, but 2 of them don't. Yeah. I just think it's helpful, just like with fire equipment and stuff, that when people see a vehicle, they can identify it, this is fire, this is police, this is that, it's a big part of why we have a local thing, so that we can make it public.
So, Mr. Chair, there is money in this budget to letter the cruiser that's out back. When Chief first came on board, that was one that needed to be re-lettered. Since he was the chief, I was okay, but took the lettering off it. He had an unmarked vehicle. Operationally, I'm okay if he has an unmarked vehicle. His may not be marked in the future. I just want to make that clear publicly that operationally, unless the board directs me to do so, I intend for it to be unmarked. Just to clear that up right out the get-go.
Any specific reason why?
It's nice to have a mix. I mean, everybody sees a Rangeley PD car. Not everybody's breaking the law, for one, right? So the people not breaking the law are gonna recognize that car. The guy that's doing something that's trying to be sneaky or shady or underhanded, he's not gonna see the car that's not unmarked. So he's not throwing a flag out for it. It's nice to have a mix.
They provide service, if somebody may want to recognize them because they need service.
Not arguing.
Not that
the
they're
point.
trying to get away with some crime.
Um, Because a lot of people now, sometimes if they have someone pull them over, I mean, I know of instances where there was a cop that pretended he was still a cop and pulled somebody over and did something, so that, to me, is like, if you pull somebody over, they may not stop because they're not sure if you're actually truly a cop, so that's just one thing.
In response to Shelley, if that was the case, no one would ever pull him for your husband, but, since he's the deputy chief, he has no letters. I don't see any problem with this chief not having any letters, but I do think all the cruisers should be let out.
So I just wanna, there's always a good, possibility of, especially if you need to do a drive-by to check something or things like that, not go by with a marked cruiser. Most agencies that I know of have unmarked cruisers. The patrol ones, yes, I agree. The 3 out there should be marked. The gray one that's unmarked, that lettering is falling off it. I had it stripped off. It can be replaced, so.
Thank you.
That flag,
What's that?
just show that flag.
Okay, we talked about 2504.
Sorry, hello, I have a question.
Hello.
Hi. So by way of unmarking a vehicle, doesn't that in fact change whether or not it's a taxable benefit? I just want to make sure that we're aware of that.
I don't think that's the case, Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to
It-
verify.
If you could please verify it, because I do believe it is the case. It changes whether or not it's a taxable benefit if it's unmarked.
We'll look into that. Thank you.
You're a CPA consultant, so you're good, Joe.
Okay, 2504, no change there. Definitely a change in 3509, that's the software, and we touched on that, under the fire department, discussion. Chief, you're part of this, but do you want to add anything else to this discussion here?
So 2025, I don't know why it was 0. Because we are currently paying TriTech, it used to be TriTech in Central Square now, and the Open Box. The addition to this is that new system, we will have to pay 1 year's worth of our old system and a year for the new system, just to keep them both going until we move into this new system. So that's where this, between $300 and $3,500 increase that hopefully next year will be reduced.
It is right here, 3509.
So those are the line items.
Should have been.
Line items, Mr. Chair, if you look at the bottom, there is an increase in this department. It's a significant one, but the justification to me is pretty clear for that. We've developed into a fully staffed department. It seems to be well received. So that's the increase. It's a little over 200,000. Most of it, again, is, as I alluded to earlier, most of these departments, a lot of that's in the compensation. This one probably more so than others. They are some of the higher paid employees in town, and that's a statewide, nationwide trend. If you're going to attract these folks, you're gonna make higher wage, and this is a collective bargaining function also. So scheduling is us, but bargaining is, well, part of that's us, but that's in place. Already done.
I just a comment on the overtime wages, Chief. I know that you said that, it's there, you're not necessarily gonna pay out $87,329, but it's still money we have to raise through taxation. And, I realize we're working with a schedule that we've never had to quite figure this before, but where we Rangeley pays a hefty amount of, I think we're second in county taxes, and, maybe there could be a shift here or there that, the sheriff's office could be alerted to that's open, that, can you swing through Rangeley or whatnot? It's a lot of money I'm just asking for another look. That's, that's it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, is the completion of PB, next is animal control. This is one of those locations where, at the beginning of the meeting, I denoted that I did not insert any colon. So I would recommend that when you deliberate, that you increase the wages here for ECO by 2.5%. Other than that, other than shelter fees, there really aren't a lot of changes in this that have been proposed. Shelter fees are up $700 or so. Very fortunate to have a control officer. I know that some places in the county and the state are not as lucky as us. We've previously historically had good coverage, and we currently have continue to have good coverage. So. Questions on that one? No. EMS is up. It's up to the tune of about 50 grand. And I've invited Steve Smith, who will come on February 11th. He's the new director of North Star. He took Mike Senecal's spot. Mike Senecal's moved off to the coast. He's got a higher position now. But Steve will come and explain in more detail why it's up. But in a nutshell, I can tell you, the hospital has a deficit to about 800,000, and they, in a nutshell, wanted to split that with the participants in North Star, which the advisory board essentially voted to do. Full disclosure, I'm on that board, and after hearing it, supported the motion. So it is an increase. Steve Smith will be here and give more explanation on the 11th, but I didn't want that to sneak up on you. There was an increase there. It was pretty stable for a long time. Last year it went up, I think 10 or 11,000, and now it's up, about 50. But everybody's up. It's not just me; everybody's in the system is gone up.
Just to clarify, is it $800,000 deficit for the EMS services?
Yes.
Franklin, not Franklin's overall position.
No, it's for the ambulance services for North Star. All right, let's see, I'm asking again, Steve, will you know with more details? We couldn't be here tonight, but we'll be on the hydrants, that's the water department, water district, I should say. The information we have is no increase at this point.
We haven't done a rate on new rate case.
Okay, well, that's what we're gonna work on now. And hydrants are for fire protection, that's why we pay for them. That's regulated under P. Last item here is local health officer. The second item, the second location, not insert a COLA. Only by error and nothing I should have done. So please, when you deliberate, consider putting it in. Really no change here at all. Might, because it hasn't been as active since, the days of rampant COVID, you might ask, what? I would employ that this is an important position and you don't realize how important it is to need it. You won't know you need it until you're in the middle of something where you need it. So having the health officer handy on standby is a big benefit, especially when it's qualified and in tune with the community as this one. I would suggest keeping it funded, and I also would suggest an increase there. I apologize for not having that inserted beforehand.
Can I interrupt for a second? I think Joe I couldn't hear all of it, but and this is obviously probably a little bit of if the conflict in discussion, but given the position and the person that facilitates that, but I was just looking at the wage. And if you break down the $14.35 an hour, I have no idea what minimum wage is, but I look at like the animal control at $18 an hour, beach attendants at $17, $18 an hour. I think there needs to be obviously, I'll reiterate the effect of an adjustment for a beneficial position in that matter, whether it's used or not. Just
Thank you.
speaking out.
I agree. I was gonna say it if you didn't.
And we'll wait, 1465.
Those are the items that I have, Chair. I would point out that when that item comes back to the board, I think there's some good value in that last point. I would, probably suggest that, the discussion, talk with your members about, potential conflicts prior to that discussion.
Cindy?
Just to piggyback on the EMS contract increase, so Joe, do you or do you and the board discuss as far as what the rent is that you charge for the EMS crew for that space? Is that something you discuss every year? I don't remember.
It's coming up. Our budget, that you'll see it in there.
Okay.
It's a lease agreement, Mr. Chair. I don't remember exactly the terms. I don't believe it's renewed annually, but it has certainly been renewed within the last 4 years. To the, been updated so that the town is getting considerably more in lease payments than it had been, for some time. It's not gonna offset the increase here completely, but it certainly does help.
Thank you.
Anything else for anyone?
It's a small question, that EMS, contract, is that just for Rangeley or is that for the fire department? Covers all the plantations?
The EMS is only for Rangeley, the municipality of Rangeley, so that's for the ambulance service for Rangeley. So they're based right here out of this building, but they respond to the other locations in the region from that base.
And
And for that, they
pay
pay us
us.
a lease, yeah. They pay us a lease.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, down to the calendar. We've got another meeting in 2 weeks tonight and February 11th. Thanks for all the input tonight. Oh, next week. If you have any questions, or whatnot, you want to submit. Thank you all for your input tonight. Thank all the department heads for coming. Joe. For walking us through it. Take a vote for the women. Motion made and second from Sam, all in favor? All right, thanks again, guys. Thank you, Keith, staff now.
For people that are struggling to get enough meeting time, the comp plan meets on the 28th from 3 to 5, and then the budget meeting.
Jake told me about that.